What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're on the Steam Deck taking a look at Schedule 1, and I wasn't going to get this game and jump into it, but honestly, I'm having a blast with it. It's definitely up my alley, and with over 400,000 peak players already since this came out, it's obviously been very popular. I've seen a lot of funny streams and stuff as well, and I generally know where the game is headed in the first few hours, and my couple hours with it has been a lot of fun and working okay here on the Steam Deck for the most part. Now, there isn't controller support, but the Steam Deck's able to deal with that pretty well with some community layout or your own type of layout or editing any of these. But being able to function throughout the game, which we'll look at, seem to be just fine once you get used to it. As far as settings, it's not exactly the most robust, and I do recommend taking that interface scale and bumping it all the way up. It's just not something I remember to do here when we were looking. I ultimately just landed on high settings because there isn't really much difference. The game doesn't max out resources or run that high anyway, and we'll take a look at that. But it's really not about the performance as much as it is just the game's a lot of fun, and the fact that it runs well enough here on the deck and you can customize the controls to work even though there's no controller support is pretty cool. Now again, like I said, it's not necessarily about performance, but I will just show you quickly as we go through a couple of settings. So I'll jump in here and we'll go from high, and I'll drop things down to medium here, and we're really not going to bump up or change much here throughout the game. And that's whether you restart the game or not or whatever. You're just going to get worse shadows and graphics in general without much of a bump in performance, except for certain times at night or certain areas I've noticed that you can see more difference. There wasn't a whole lot here going between that high, medium, and low, other than really don't like the shadows and the flickering and all of that. Ultra wasn't great, but high just seemed to be fine, and this isn't a game I needed a lot of FPS out of, to be honest with you. I wasn't super worried about that as long as it's not a stutter mess or crashing, and it hasn't been. Even if you turn off SSAO or God Rays or any of that, you're not going to boost performance either. So in my opinion, why not just leave those on for the most part unless you don't want them? Leave it on high and just pretty much enjoy the game for what it is. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into it more here, but anyways, that's pretty much where I landed, and performance has been like 30 to 40, 30 to 45 FPS, depending on where I'm at, with some occasional dips more here or there. But again, it's been good for not stuttering, decent frame times, and ultimately I've had no crashes, and those custom controls seem to be working fine, where I can do everything in the game that I ultimately need to be able to do. Because you're going to do a lot of sim type things, taking out the trash, bagging up product, harvesting, mixing, dealing with clients, all kinds of things. And ultimately it works okay here on the deck, having the extra buttons on the back to function with and all that type of stuff. Now we'll just take this trash over here and somebody will deal with it eventually. Just get it out of the motel. We're going to move to a bigger place here soon anyways. But yeah, being able to go in here, and one of the things you'll have to do in the beginning of the game before you get into mixing and other stuff is harvesting your product and everything here. So we're going to do that, and I'm able to do that with either the touchpad, the right touchpad as mouse, and then clicking with the right trigger, or I can just use the right stick and also click, and then I can spin this around. WASD for all of your movements with walking, driving, or even rotating. This stuff is A and D, which is just mapped out to the joystick. So it works out fine. And then after we're done that, we of course got to bag things up, and pulling that off here, while cumbersome for me at first because I've been playing this with a mouse and keyboard, once I got used to either the trackpad or using the stick and the triggers and everything, I ultimately didn't have much trouble. And when you get used to using the back buttons for some of the other shortcuts, like the scroll wheel for quantities, escape, running quickly, all that kind of stuff, you get kind of used to it. Pulling up tab or using the menu button or the back button is pretty easy to get into your phone, list your products, see your messages, all that kind of stuff. I didn't have any problem navigating any of these menus and doing what I needed to here. So we post that up for sale. We'll get us a little message here. We can actually go back in there with our back button, click messages, click on here, do a deal, and we'll go take care of Sam right away here. So we're done with that. And yeah, no trouble. Like, again, a little cumbersome for me at first with all the buttons, but it all works, and I haven't run into anything that I can't do with this mapping in the game so far anyway on the deck. And even though performance isn't super high, again, I really wasn't worried about that too much in this game. But yeah, we can go through here. We'll interact with Sam here. We'll give him the good stuff that he wants. There you go, Sam. He only wants one, so I can actually just right click on that instead of left and just move one over at a time, and we could use a scroll wheel, which is one of the back paddle buttons, if we want to there. So there we go. Make the sale to Sam. He'll be happy here in a couple of seconds. Hello, Sam. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much the deal. So the functions of the game and doing what you need to do, even though we're in the early ons here, have been fine. I haven't had any trouble with getting these to work. You could ultimately map things out the way you want. Again, I would boost up the size of the user interface scaling here so you can read things a little easier, just something I didn't do, and ultimately keep the settings high enough to where it's not flickering or looking too bad, and you can enjoy selling your product and growing and mixing and doing all the fun stuff you want to do while you're on the go on the deck. So anyways, guys, just a quick look here. I did just want to show it running, that it worked, and that I was able to do all of this with controls on the deck, no mouse or anything like that. It worked okay. All right, guys, as always, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.